July the 7th, 11:50 a.m., Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We have one trail amongst natural-looking cumulus clouds, so I'm dubious about this one, especially considering the altitude just does not look like a persistent contrail could persist, but we'll check the sounding data. Okay, we're looking at sounding data for 12 Zulu Universal Time, July the 7th, 2016, from the LIX Slidell Muni atmospheric sounding data. If we go down here to the very bottom of this screen capture, we're looking at columns 2, 3, and 5. Column 2 is the altitude, 4,595 meters, which is a little bit over 15,000 feet. The second number is the temperature in Celsius, 0.6, and then the fifth column is the relative humidity at that altitude, which is 71%. The general rule of thumb is that for a contrail to persist, it needs to be a temperature of at least minus 38 degrees Celsius and 60% relative humidity. Both of those conditions need to be satisfied, which is clearly not the case for this altitude. Continuing with the sounding data for July the 7th, we're now looking at the top of the image, altitude 9144, which is 30,000 feet. This is the normal minimum altitude that commercial airliners fly in, from 30 to 40,000 feet roughly. So we see here column number 3 is the temperature, minus 27.8 Celsius, and column 5 is 37% humidity at that altitude. So once again, the conditions for consistent contrail do not exist there. So we're going to scroll down to 36,000 feet. So once again, we're looking at 36,000 feet, which is 10,972.8 meters, which this sounding doesn't have that exact altitude. So we're going to go with the 10,990. So at 10,990, 36,000 feet, we have minus 41.9 degrees Celsius, and column 5 is the relative humidity of 29%. So once again, the conditions do not exist at that altitude for a persistent contrail. Finally, we're looking at approximately 40,000 feet, which is 12,192 meters, which that exact reading isn't here, so we're going with the 12,460 meters. And column 2 is the temperature in Celsius, minus 53.7. Cold enough for a persistent contrail, absolutely. But column number 5 shows that we have 37% relative humidity, which is much too dry for a consistent contrail to persist. So the general conclusion for today's conditions, from 15,000 to 40,000 feet approximately, conditions do not exist for a persistent contrail. And one last bit of corroborating evidence is this is a commercial airline traffic from Flight Radar 24, and this screen capture was taken just a few minutes after videoing the contrail, which by the way ran from east to west, or west to east, and we can see that there in Baton Rouge, perhaps one flight I really kind of doubt it because I was looking south. So no. I was looking south, so there was no commercial airliner traffic in the air at that time, which means it's military. Okay, what we're looking at here is the Appleman chart, which was developed by a guy named, I think, George Appleman, and it's a graph of the conditions that are necessary for contrails, either persistent or temporary. And reading across the bottom, you can see that there is temperature in Celsius, and anything below the 38, minus 38 degrees Celsius, contrails cannot exist. And it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, both conditions, both temperature and humidity needs to be within a certain range, which is minus 38 for the temperature Celsius and 60% relative humidity. And you can compare any sounding data to this and get a quick visual check and see that according to this chart, which is used by the military, NASA, et al., to track, to predict contrail formation, it's all pretty self-evident. Persistent contrails are the conditions for persistent contrails exist very, very rarely.